Hey everyone, wanted to share a project that I've been working on. It's called CodeFollow. What it is, it's a tool that enables developers to add some interactivity to their code presentations. It's specifically designed for talking at user groups and trying to engage the entire audience with examples they can actually participate in. What I've got here is an example, and I'm just going to walk you through it real quick. So here on the left we have the presenter screen. I've already got the presentation going, and you can see that users would see the presentation ID to join into. Each user gets their own view of the presentation. So over here on the right, I have a user that's joined in at the moment, and he can see what's going on his own screen, and the screen on the left would be what shows up on the projector. The presenter, they're sent a URL that they can use as a remote from their phone to navigate the presentation, so they don't have to stand next to their laptop the entire time. So I'll navigate a couple slides forward, and you can see that on the left the presentation is synced across all of the devices without anyone having to do anything manually. Now if you have a user that shows up late, they can join in at any time. So this user is going to sign in and join this presentation as well. And you'll notice that they're brought to the same place as everyone else. So far, this works pretty well for just doing a basic presentation. But since we're talking about doing code presentations, something that's been added here is the idea that users can test and try out code directly from their browser. So we're discussing, in this example, some JavaScript, and we want to test them on a sample. So we would spend some time talking about how JavaScript variables are declared, explain to them how they would type it in, what the syntax is, and then we would move on to a test. Now if you'll notice on all the screens, the participant screens, we now have a code editor where we can start typing in. The presenter has a separate view of the screen that's dedicated to specifically saying what the requirements are, but the presenter also has a code editor as well, so if they wanted to type up on the main screen and let people see a reminder on how to do something, they'd be able to. But we're more interested in what a user sees. So this user is going to type in some of the requirements and attempt to run it. Now it sends the code up to the server. The server executes that code, tests it, and then grades it and sends back down a result. So in this case you can see that we earned 3 points, but we did not get all of the points that were available. We can look down and see our test results, and then see what we passed on, what we failed on, and then we can go back and make some corrections. So we'll finish this up, run it again, and you can see that this time we pass everything. Switch over to the other users so they'll have some points at least. Now this user is not going to get as many points, and the reason why this is kind of important is to add a little bit of competitiveness and maybe a little bit of enjoyment to your presentation. We show rankings as we go. Now to make sure that it's understood, the rankings on the main projector are only the top 3 users. So if you have a group of 50 people and there's some people that are really not understanding the topic, their scores won't be visible anywhere. The idea here was that you have some people that already understand the framework you're talking about or understand the language that you're using, and they're probably not as engaged as the rest of the group, but this gives them a chance to kind of compete with the other people in the room that know what they're doing. Now for each of the individual users though, they get a view where they can see how they're doing, what they've passed, and then they can see what the scope of the entire presentation is going to cover. This way they can kind of get an idea of how they're doing, and then really feel like they're coming away with something and know what they need to go back and practice at the end of the presentation. So another example, since it is evaluating code, that means you can use external libraries. So if you wanted to teach somebody how to use, say, like the Sugar JavaScript library, you'd be able to load that in as part of your test and let them write code directly against it. So this example wants us to sort the fruits array. So we'll go ahead and just do the first part of this. And you can see that we come back with some points, but not all of the points because we didn't finish. Now we can use this, we can be as detailed as we want to in the tests that we write, We can look and make sure that they're actually using the framework and not sorting it by other means, but it's entirely up to you and how detailed you are in your tests themselves. Another neat thing is, since that it's running the code on the server and is specifically using Phantom.js, that means that we have access to the browser and the DOM. So we can write tests that use things like jQuery and use it to modify markup or test to see if you're able to write a correct selector, things along those lines. So in this next example, you'll see that we have two files this time. We have the script file that we're going to run along with some markup. We'll go ahead and do this first part of this. Write in some of our jQuery. And then run it, and you can see that it's going to send that up to the browser, run it, the server, run it in the browser, and then send back down the result. On some of these examples, because there is something that we can look at, we can hit preview and we'll get back the result that we would have executed against the server, but we can kind of preview it in advance. Because this runs in the browser, that means we can test some non-code functionality. So for example, CSS. If you wanted to give a presentation about using CSS and writing selectors, you'd be able to do that with this as well. So this example right here, we can look at our preview and see that we have some unstyled CSS here. We can come over to our markup and make the changes it's wanting us to do. Run it again, and you can see that in our preview our changes are showing up. We'll run the test and see how we're doing, and we can see that our styles are being applied correctly, and we're able to test and make sure that the participant in the audience actually understands how to use the CSS examples we're teaching them. There's also some experiments I'm doing as far as non-browser code. I've got Ruby kind of working right now. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but at the moment you can run Ruby tests, include external libraries, things like that. So for this example, we're going to declare a couple variables like we did at the very beginning. And then execute it, and you can see that it goes up to the server, runs, and comes back with the results like we expect. Because it's running code, much like the JavaScript examples, that means we can use anything that we want. So if we wanted to teach them how to write some classes, we could do that here, and it'll execute them on the server. So it's not doing string matching to see, make sure that users are doing things correctly. It's actually running and coming back with a real result based off of real code. So in this example, we're just going to show that we can define this class and it comes back with the results like we expect. But I'm going to add a couple little unique lines to me. I'm going to say my class, and then now the point of this is to show that when you're working on code examples, you can have a little bit of continuity between tests as well. So right now we're teaching them how to write a simple add function. There are much better ways of doing this. So let's say the next example, we wanted to kind of introduce a better way of handling, multiple values that come in. Well, we can call upon that previous example that we were just working on and tell them, okay, now let's update this thing to, make it a little bit better this time. And then they'd be able to come in and do their little bit right here. But the point is that code can carry on throughout the course of the presentation. So as you're doing a presentation, you can start with one class and work your way through developing the full, featured class and carry that code throughout the entire thing. Anyways, this is just a quick thing I wanted to show off. If anyone's interested, let me know. I'll kind of let you know more information about how you can write your own tests or how to get access to giving your own presentations. And thank you for watching.